Hey everybody, my name is Brock and today I'm going to take you on a little walkthrough through my recently released song called The Butterfly Effect. For starters, I want to introduce you to my space and my environment and just some of the devices that I work with. These are two Alesis speakers here. I've got a Scarlett Focusrite audio interface right here. I've got two external hard drives because I need a buttload of space. This is a Samsung T7 and this is a LaCie. They're very, very nice. I've got an Arturia keyboard. More specifically, it's a Keylab 61 Essential. It's very nice. I have my MacBook here and I work in the software called Logic Pro X. It is very nice. It's got everything at your fingertips. And also, I'll speak more about this later, but most of my instruments in here are from Spitfire and East West Sounds, which are beautiful sounds. Yes, this is one of the biggest projects I've ever worked on. It has 137 tracks, and that includes audio tracks, sound effects, instruments, all the above. I've split it into parts, as you can see. There's a string section, a brass section, woodwinds. This is its own separate thing, analog circuits. It's light percussion, low percussion. I've got this sound effect in there. And here are all the pianos. I didn't really know what to do with these. So, I'm going to go ahead and start the song, and we're going to do a little start and stop game, where if I find something I like and I want to describe and explain, I will go ahead and do that. Beginning of the song. Even as a girl. Okay, I'm already going to stop. So, that right here, just to say, these chords right here that you hear at the beginning, I go like this. That is my favorite chord progression on this entire earth. So I think that's a major first to a minor fourth. I've been working on my chord names and chord progression names, or whatever you'd call them. I love the sound of any chord that goes from major to minor. So you can do it with C and F minor. It creates really crazy sounds, and I love how it sounds. I've got things like B flat, E minor. So this one I really just messed around with A flat, and I went to C sharp, but it has a sixth, and it makes it sound really dynamic and really cool. I came up with this. This was the first thing I had written of the song, and this was, fun fact, this was going to be the entire song. It was just going to be these chords, and this was how the rest of the chords were going to be. It was just going to be this tune, and I'll tell you how it changed in a second. Roaming a kingdom, even as a bird guiding a ship, even as a snowflake dancing your. And that chord right there, that one shocked me. I was messing around with what could I put here, what could make it sound, because it's a little bit of a, there's a little bit of a hunting vibe to this first part, which is exactly what I wanted. And to go down to that E was soul shaking to me, and I really enjoyed it. Moving on now, I'm nerding out. To me. So here's where my funny story comes in. So I was taking music tech lessons with my wonderful teacher. His name is Nathan Terry, and he came here and I would write a bunch of things, and then he would come over and listen and give me critique and help me out with how to work Logic and how to EQ things. And when he came over, all I had was that beginning portion and then that part right there. And when he listened to that, I told him that the rest of the song was going to be back to these chords. And he said, no, you have to use that main melody right there for the whole rest of the song. He said it just works so well with the entire vibe. So I had to change the time signature of the song, and it became that new and improved melodic line. Across the hallway, I see you in blue. Fun fact, sorry to stop again, but this voice you hear right here, I recorded this a long time ago. I recorded this, I believe, in 2022 or 2023, I want to say. However, I recorded the whole song and re-listened to it. I brought it back in 2024, and I thought, I sound so small and childish, and I sound different. My voice has matured just a little bit. And this, however, I liked how this first verse sounded, so I kept it the same. So this first verse, across the hallway I see you in blue, is me from 2023 singing, versus the whole rest of the song is me in 2024. Don't know if you could notice, you might have been able to. However, I thought that was pretty cool.
Behind the stage, your wings uncage the wonder of you. You run from left to right, your hands in the sky. You leap and take flight, my eyes intensify. But all I know is the impossible, 'cause it's out of my hands and it's in my head.
Now right there was one of my favorite melodic lines. It is in the strings, and it's very small in the background. I'm going to open this string section up right here. It's all the violins. The violins are doing something that I love, and it's also a recurring motif, which I will get to later. These violins are doing this in the background. It's this moving melody that kind of keeps it going, and it gives it a backbone, and without it, it doesn't sound as full. So altogether, you might be able to hear it in the background.
My eyes intensify, but all I know is the impossible, 'cause it's out of my hands and it's in my head.
It's very much in the background. It might be hard to hear, but I love that melodic line. And that's doubled over with a cello. It's got some marimba in there, and the bass drum at the end.
But what if what if she, what if could we have ever been?
Let me start off by saying there's, I think, 3 recurring motifs within the song. There's this first one. That's basically the whole song. However, there's also this one. And that one is what that trumpet just played. And then there's also the one that the violins play, which is... These are 3 recurring motifs that I adore throughout the song. It's almost like a story. It's a combination of what's going on and the feeling that's being portrayed, and you hear them throughout the song via different instruments. At the end, it's just piano, and sometimes it's a violin playing it and things like that. But this trumpet here,
what if could we have ever been?
That is the same melody that the piano plays at the end. And I fell in love with that melody, and now it is all throughout the song. Moving on.
What if you were...
Sorry to stop so soon. There is a moment here, and it is kind of a rumbling, and it's one of my favorite sounds. There's a song called The Fall. It's by, I think you pronounce it Two-Way. It's for League of Legends. It sounds like people humming this low note, and there's a little kick to it. It's like a that was a horrible impression. However, I used these sliding cellos from Spitfire Labs, which is really nice sounds. And on top of that, I also used this low percussion here. Play it all together. So that's a combination of a bass drum, those sliding cellos, and there's also a tubular bell in there as well. I wanted to keep this a light song. If you've listened to it, you know it did not stay that way. However, when I started adding more bass to it, I realized it added a second layer of I'm not sure what word it adds a second layer of a haunting kind of I can't find a word for it, but if you have a word for it, leave it down in the comments, let me know. That was the start of the villain arc of this song, so you could say.
We have ever been. What if you were meant to be? What if things went differently for us?
That right there, this whole part where it goes really light, there's a bunch of bells and there's a glockenspiel in there and it's just the piano. That was very reminiscent actually of the song Fix You. Not the Coldplay version though. Cody Fry did a version, and Cody Fry is one of my biggest inspirations on this planet. In fact, just fun fact about me, his song I Hear a Symphony was actually my introduction to orchestral pop music, which is, I mean, it speaks for itself. But I listened to that song and I immediately fell in love with all the orchestrations, his voice, his writing, and that inspired me. I used to want to be a pop artist, which it's still a little dream that's inside of me. But now I realize my love for orchestral music, strings, brass, all this beautiful chaos, might I call it. So if you listen to the song Fix You, there's a part where it gets real light and there's a little bass in there as well. I'll see if I can pull it up, but listen to it and let me know if you find it.
Below the colored lights, our hearts could freely glide above.
This part right here, so there is a story within this song, and this part of the story takes place at a roller rink. And this moment, when we get back into the groove, there is still this, but now it's layered with multiple different instruments, and there's this, it's an electronic bass drum, and it's a heartbeat. Right there. That's the Analog Circuits instrument on Logic Pro X. And I wasn't sure about it because I wondered if it sounded too techno, too like there's this addition of, that's a lot of pop in there. So I wasn't sure about it. However, it added to the story because it adds the tension of what this song is about, and this is kind of the climax of the song right here.
Oh, the colored
There's this tension being built.
Our hearts could freely glide above. There is a choice to make. I made a great mistake.
That's another one of my favorite string sections right there. So there's a little bit of a majestic vibe. It's pretty flowing and it's got some twinkles here and there, but the harmonies, when you hear them, they don't necessarily sound very good. They're kind of dissonant, and I'll let you hear this specific moment again. And then it gets back into the groove of this skating, freedom, all that kind of stuff.
Choice to make. I made a great mistake.
There it is.
A call from far away. A chance as clear as day. The sparkle in your eyes. The dreams you long to say. Bound to another's love. I ran away, and day by day I wonder why.
Sorry to cut off at the climax. However, this part right here, so we're building a bunch of tension, and I bring back that electronic bass drum. This is the big climax of the song. This is where all of the action's happening. This is where you run away. Oh, why did I do that? Dang, I'm stupid. However, I wanted to show you this cool thing that I did, and this is the first time I've ever experimented with this. I wanted this sound that was kind of like you're emerging into a new place. That's the only way I can describe it. And it's the sound of a tearing, a ripping, and here we are, oh shoot, we're going to this danger zone. So I couldn't find anything on my computer that would resemble that correctly. So I had to make it from scratch. So here is the first sound. That was actually a snare drum. It was a drumstick, and I slid it across and then hit it. So you can hear that again. Right there. This is... That was a cymbal. So I took a drumstick, I slid it across, bam, and I hit it. That's the Velcro. And this is the wind, or the dust spray. Kind of sounds like a train whistle. So all those together create this sound. And that was as close as I could get, and I kind of liked it, and within the context, I thought it sounded really nice. So I will show you what it sounds like.
I ran away and day by day I wonder why.
It's very small, and you might not be able to hear it. However, I'll play it again so you can try your best.
I ran away and day by day I wonder why. What if I and what if she? What if could we have ever been?
So there, that motif comes back again. However, it's with a bunch of more instruments. So that was not correct grammar. There was more instruments playing it. I don't know. It has a bunch of violins. You can hear it up here. And it also still has the trumpet playing it, but you can hear it right here.
What if I and what if she? What if could we have ever been? What if you?
Now right here, there's a part of the song that I did not think was ever going to happen. It sounds like you're going back in time, and this is actually in another song I wrote called Another World, which is out on Spotify. And it has this effect of, there's a clock ticking sound, and there's this bass and rumble, and it's this building tension. And for the clock sound, it is actually not a clock. I didn't have a clock on hand. I was not able to find anything that sounded like a clock. However, there's a sound library called the Hans Zimmer Percussion. I love it so much, and I'm the biggest fan of Hans Zimmer. I went to his concert and it was phenomenal. Getting off topic, however. So there are taiko drums, and there's a sound of the crack of the rim. And to me it sounded kind of like a clock. So I used that, and within the context of the song, I think it sounds a little bit less obvious.
What if you were meant to be? What if things went differently for us?
Sorry to end it again. This right here, this violin part, it was originally not supposed to be that. It was not going to be the violins going. It was actually going to be, I forget how it goes. That's what it was going to be. So it was going to go, what if things went differently for us? And I know that sounded really bad, but something about it did not work for me. I didn't really like the sound of it. I thought it wasn't big enough for what we had already heard, and I wanted it to be really big. I wanted it to be, you're traveling somewhere, you're dancing, you're expressing these emotions that are just too big to express with words. And I was playing with the violin sound, and I thought, would this sound better on a violin? And then I did just the, and I thought, okay, that sounds a little cool. So I recorded it and I put it on with a bunch of different instruments. And these violins, by the way, are from the BBC Symphony Orchestra, also provided by Spitfire Audio. They're fantastic sounds. And when I did it, here's it alone. So along with the BBC Symphony violins, there's also East-West violins in there as well, and those are very, very nice. So we can hear them again, and it's one of my favorite parts. I love to hear them come in because it's something totally different from the rest of the song. That right there, I think if I were to pick one, that would be my all-time favorite part of the song. I'm not exactly sure what it's called, but there are some parts in songs where you've got all these upper register instruments that do a note. Boom! And then there's this lower pounding. It's usually you've got high violins and trumpets up here, and then you've got the brass, you've got the tubas and some of the French horns, the basses, and I love that sound. It's just a crash, boom! And so I really wanted to put that in here. And here, now we have a different rendition of the same motif. So, usually it's... However, I was messing around and it kind of just came out of nowhere. We go up instead. It goes... That was wrong. Sorry. It does go up instead of down here. And I thought it added a different vibe, and it creates this sort of whimsy and wonder, and it's a transportation to a new world, and this new world of thought. And then back again, here come these violins going mighty fast. So this right here, this is the same motif from the beginning. However, I wanted to change it up and alter it, and so it has different bass lines, which makes them sound slightly different each time. Here's the first one. The second one goes down. And the third one is the classic. So, same top, just different bass lines. They all sound different. And now we have this big interpretation of this first melodic line. And I was so drawn to it that I wanted to keep going. I was thinking of the different places I could go with it. I wasn't sure exactly what I could do and what would make sense. I just started it out on different keys. So any key that I landed on, I did it on that one. So I start here. I landed on the F key, so I start from F now instead of E flat. And now I start from C and I keep going, so on and so forth. I'll let this whole piano part play out and you can hear the different parts that go along. There's a note in there that may sound a little bit off. It goes... And it's a little strange because they're right on top of each other. However, I like the sound that it almost sounds unfinished. But then that note right there is the resolution. And I don't know if you can hear, but there's a piano in the background. It's very silent. However, I think it makes it sound more like a memory, and that's what I really like about it. Back to this motif again. So that whole section right there, I really kind of combined both motifs and put them together, and I really enjoyed the sound of it. And I have a tendency to make things really big, and I add a bunch of instruments and make it sound super grand and big, and so it was hard to just keep it really simple and to just have the piano go through. I was like, I gotta add a trumpet, I have to add some cellos in there, it's gonna sound really freaking cool. But once I listened to it with just piano, I was thinking, that sounds great, just the piano. It reminds me just so much of a ton of different things, but you know, this story and this process and experience, and it's very reminiscent kind of melody, and I like playing around with it on the piano. I'll sit and make different variations just for fun. Now we get to the closing, and this is the part that's different from everything else. This is a part of the motif, this one. However, it's slower, so it's, and just those three notes, that's still a part of it. So you can listen and see how it's changed and altered throughout.
The pages turn as time passes by. I've set you free and learned to fly. No more what ifs, no need to ask why.
This was the only thing that I had kept. Everything I did several drafts on. I was changing this, changing that. However, this ending section with the growing instruments and then the choir at the end, I knew, if anything, that was what I wanted to keep. Because I love the sound of it. I love that there's one note in there that I've heard. My girlfriend told me, she always says, can you just finish it? And I'll show you where that is.
But why?
So right there, whenever my girlfriend listened to it, she always says, can you finish the note? Because instead of ending on and going right down, which would make most sense, I like the idea of keeping it unfinished, because that is this entire song, is that it's an unfinished tale. It's an unfinished story. It's unfinished as to what's going to happen next. It's kind of blurry as to what happened then. Here's the choir when it's just soloed. This is me. I went on my microphone and I just started messing around with what could sound good. I call it the whale harmony. I don't know why. It sounds like whales, maybe? I named it a little bit ago, but here it is. It's got this sound. It's a little bit of a simple harmony, but I love the way it sounds. And so, the ending of the song. We're left on a little bit of a cliffhanger. This song means a lot to me. It was one of the biggest projects I've worked on, like I said in the beginning, and this project was so big, my buffer size is 1024, which is a hell of a lot, that's for sure. And working on this project has been a dream come true, and I'm really glad I got to do a walkthrough of it. I've been wanting to, because there are a bunch of little details in here that I think it's cool for the public to know. For those of you who listened to the song and enjoyed the song, and thank you for listening to the song and enjoying the song. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you learned something about the song that you never knew before. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. I'm happy to answer anything. Thank you so much for watching. This is The Butterfly Effect, out now on all streaming platforms.